The founder of African Press Organization, Mr. Nicolas Pompine Mognat, has called on the Catholic Church in Africa to take advantage of the media landscape to promote evangelization in the continent. Mr. Mognat made this call in an exclusive interview with Catholic Television in Abuja.
Well, I was talking about Africa, really, and in Africa, it is a fact that the Roman Catholic Church is by far the largest private media owner. The Roman Catholic Church has TVs, radios, newspapers across the continent, several per countries, and so the reason I believe why maybe the potential of evangelization of that incredible network has never been fully harnessed. One of the main reasons I think is because, you see, in most of those countries, most of those medias are only addressing the Catholic audience. So in other words, the Catholic media are only having a programmation dedicated to religious programs, Catholic religious programs. You don't find news about sport, you don't find hard news about what is happening in the country or on the continent or across the world. So they provide only a programmation which is dedicated to a Catholic audience, hence they have only a Catholic audience. And it's become like an internal communication thing, an internal media thing. So you're talking to people which are already convinced. You're talking to people which are already Catholics. That is not the purpose of evangelization. Evangelization, the purpose is to extend your audience. And so I was interested to hear that here in Nigeria, in fact, the law is such that a private media cannot have a programmation, in its programmation, more than 20% of a program which is religious program. And so, because the Nigerian media owned by the Catholic Church have to respect the law, they have to have 80% of their programmation which is not religious. And by doing that, guess what? Their audience is much higher than if they were doing only a programmation which is intended to Catholic people. So again, it has to do with what is it you expect to do, what is it you want to do, what is it you want to achieve with your media. But if it is evangelization, you need to talk to the people which are not Catholic.
The media expert, whose organization is partnering with the Symposium of Episcopal Conferences of Africa and Madagascar, believes that the population of Africa is an advantage for the continent if it will be leveraged on through the use of quality programs.
First of all, as we know, there are currently 236 million Catholics in Africa. And they are representing 20% of the global number of Catholics in the world. Also, we know that the number of Catholics is decreasing across the world, except in Africa, where it is increasing. But there is a thing to consider. The population of the continent is going to double by 2050. There are currently 1.4 billion inhabitants in Africa. By 2050, there will be 2.8 billion. And by the way, according to the United Nations, by 2100, Africa will be 40% of humanity, which means that by 2100, out of 100 inhabitants of the planet Earth, 40 will be African. And so when you actually connect those dots and when you think about all those data, you realize that when we say, oh, everything is okay, the number of Catholics is increasing in Africa, well, maybe that figure is actually deceiving. Because, in fact, if the number of Catholics is increasing in Africa, it's because the population is increasing dramatically. What we should look at is not necessarily the overall number, the volume, if you wish, of Catholics. It is the percentage, the evolution of the percentage. Because you see, during the last 5 to 10 years, there have been a lot of new religion, new so-called religion, all across the country, which are, and I'm sorry to to use that wording, a wording which is coming from the corporate world, but it's only one which makes sense, which are slowly taking market share in religions. So all this so-called and new religion, modern religion, are using techniques which were only 10 years ago only reserved to corporation. They are doing advertising, outdoor billboard advertising, they are doing advertising on TVs. And so slowly but surely, those organizations are taking market share, you see? So the overall number of Catholics in Africa may grow, but because the population of Africa is growing tremendously. That doesn't mean the market share of the Catholic Church is steady and growing.
He also encouraged youths in Africa to use their potentials to develop cooperation that will move Africa forward.
When I mentioned earlier that the population is going to double, when I mentioned earlier that by 2100 Africa will be 40% of humanity, obviously if you are good in math, like I am, what that means is that the youth will be in Africa. A huge part of the youth of the world will be in Africa. As I said, Africa currently has 1.4 billion inhabitants. By 2050, the population will double to 2.8. So what that means is that in 2050, you will have at least 1.4 billion people, which will be less than 30 years old, correct? I mean, you do the math, less than 27 years old, right? So the youth of Africa will represent a huge potential for cooperation, for governing body of all sorts, for sport federations, for football. Africa is the future of so many type of organizations.